Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. I hope you're watching live. We are live right now on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. If you are on any of those platforms, please say hi. Please leave a comment in the chat. My name is Natalia Hansen from Humane Canada Summit for Animals. I am very happy to bring on my guest in just a second. But first, let me tell you why we're doing this. This live stream series with our Summit for Animals speakers are intended to give you, our viewers, a sneak peek into the types of sessions and the quality of the speakers that you can expect to see at the Summit for Animals in Montreal this April. We're only 6 weeks away. And let me tell you, the Summit for Animals is 90% sold out right now. I'm going to put it right here on the screen, 90% sold out. So there's still a chance for you to register for Canada's biggest and boldest animal welfare conference. Go to humanecanada.ca/summit. Our guest today is waiting in the wings, and they're not a stranger to Humane Canada Summit for Animals. Spoken several times before, this year joining us as a program development advisor for our program committee. So I have the honor of introducing you to Alison Cuffley, who will come out in a second. But first, let me tell you about Alison. Alison brings a wealth of experience from their decade of work with SPCAs and humane societies across Canada, focusing on decolonization, equity policies, and One Health initiatives in collaboration with Indigenous communities. Now, with the Jane Goodall Institute of Canada, they are a certified Indigenous protected and conserved area planner dedicated to uplifting Indigenous led land care practices and promoting ethical space and two-eyed seeing. Alison's perspective is informed by both their German Ukrainian immigrant settler roots and their relations with the Tsleil-Waututh Nation. Today, joining us today from the unceded and shared territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish nations, please help me welcome Alison Cuffley to the live stream. Hi, Ali.
Hi, Natalia. It's so good to be here.
Likewise, always a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much for making the time. Grateful to have you here. And okay, sorry, I'm just checking the chat. We don't have anything right now. But again, if you're watching live, please comment, please say hello, tell us where you're joining us from. And as we carry out the conversation, the goal is that you, the viewers, get a chance to interact with Alison. Alison is one of 110 plus speakers at this year's conference. Let's start by tell us how you're feeling about speaking at this year's conference in Montreal.
I'm good. Year over year, the Summit for Animals is just such an amazing place to network and meet other people. I think all of those conference nerves usually leave me when I get there, especially with the different lanyards of like, do you want to hug? Do you not want to hug? I love entering zones with those kind of boundaries already in place. But everyone is just so friendly and so into it and so keen to learn that I always find that these sessions turn into a conversation. So I'm really happy this year. I'm speaking on the Sunday during the learning labs, and I hope that it's going to be more of a conversation and like kind of a one-on-one more with the folks who are attending that day.
That's right. Yeah. And thank you for saying that because I'll do a quick pitch here. So there's 3 days of conference. So Sunday, April 27th, we have our pre-conference learning labs, which are sponsored by Edmonton Humane Society. That's where Alison is speaking. And then we have the 2-day summit. So April 28th, which is a Monday, and April 29th, which is a Tuesday. All righty. So we are going to be talking about partnerships. We're going to talk about community outreach. We're going to talk about the violence link. There's a lot that we are going to cover today. So why don't we start by you telling us, for anyone who's watching who may have not ever heard of the violence link, what is this? What does that mean?
Yeah, so the violence link is a term that's used within the sector now of gender-based violence, but essentially it comes out of years and years of research that are showing that violence towards people, which they call interpersonal violence, and violence towards animals, which we know as animal cruelty, it's part of a larger pattern of violent crimes that tend to coexist. So for example, we know that cases of interpartner and gender-based violence, sexual abuse, child abuse, organized crime, homicide, and illicit drugs also commonly evolve animal abuse. So the violence link is a way for people in different sectors, animal health, human health and wellness, to join together under this common umbrella and to share knowledge, and to really kind of get under these best practices for addressing this really multifaceted issue. So, like I said, the violence link is just the term used to describe this phenomenon, and also the umbrella on which a bunch of these various sectors and agencies join together in order to address it.
Perfect. Thank you. I think you've explained it so easily and so eloquently. So thank you. Basically, yeah, the link between abuse, cruelty towards people and animals. And you work very closely, I know, with some of my team members at Humane Canada,
Yeah.
and we'll get to that point eventually. So, in your session at the conference, which by the way,
Yeah,
we don't want to give too much away because the
right.
goal is that people watch this live stream, they get excited, they look forward to come and hear more from you and all of our amazing speakers and learn more. But I know you're going to be talking about engaging with communities. And
Yeah.
when you're engaging with communities that are in your own, it could be challenging. So, can you share some key strategies that you have found effective in building that trust and fostering meaningful connections with communities that aren't necessarily your own?
Yeah, this is something that I just love to talk about. I think all of my sessions at the summit have kind of touched on this a lot because it's something that's so important to me, especially the work of the Jane Goodall Institute of Canada, where we work to co-develop and meaningfully partner with communities, especially those that are communities that our staff don't belong to. So I think that two of the most important strategies that I always tell people is both listening and understanding, which are two very different things. The example I always give people is you would never want to like hang out or be friends with someone who always thinks that they're right or who interrupts you when you're in the middle of talking. And the same goes for community engagement, that the listening phase is so important. We're born with 2 ears and one mouth, so it's doubly important to be listening to folks. So taking all of that in, but then the understanding is the great time where it's work on you as the person working in that community to do self-reflection, to do extra research, to really kind of make sure that you are deeply understanding and comprehending what was shared with you during the listening phase, especially in animal welfare, conservation, gender violence sectors, especially for those of us that don't necessarily have lived experience with these things. It's really, really necessary to listen to those who do, to understand the impacts of the current reality and to understand the things that they have been through in order to better work with them. Building trust is a really, really long process. I think going in with an open heart and transparency about who you are, what you want to do with that community, it can really lead to impactful change and amazing outcomes when you work with them. But it just needs to be very, very mindful, and it needs to be really deliberate. It's also not something you wouldn't want a friend who just, oh, maybe in the olden days, but now you don't want somebody who just rolls up and knocks on your door randomly to hang out. You want a little bit of time to plan and to understand and to really get into that process with them.
Nice. I love that analogy that you just shared. That's true. It could feel intrusive. Like if we put it in that way, if you're say you're at home, you're working, you're doing your thing, and
Yeah.
then your friend, as much as you love them, comes up, hey, I'm here. You may feel like, oh, great, but I wasn't ready for you. How about we plan this ahead? I like that. That is a really, really good analogy. Thank you. So it sounds like what you're saying is first thing is really ask as opposed to you thinking, oh, I think that what this community needs is this just
Yeah.
because I think so, maybe because you've seen it in the media, maybe because you anticipate their
Yeah.
needs, but it's really approaching and saying, hey, I'd like to help. What do you need? What do you need from me? How can I help you?
Exactly. Yeah, setting aside your own biases, what you think you might know. It's really an opportunity for you as the person working within that community to learn. Like what an opportunity for you, and that's why I always enter these situations so grateful of like this is a chance for me to be a student and to learn something I don't know and to challenge our own views. I think in this gestures broadly to everyone in this economy and in the world that we live in, being able to change your mind and being able to really deeply take in what other people who have that expertise and have those skills have to say it's a skill, and it's something that you need to keep up, but it really does lead to some amazing outcomes.
Nice. Wow. And you have a decade's worth of experience, as I said in your bio. So
I
I'm
know,
sure
which is
you've
so
got a
hard
lot.
because I'm only 20 years old, so I don't even know how I got a decade of experience.
You started working when you were like 5 years old, really?
Yeah, right out of kindergarten into the sector, of course.
That's quite an impressive resume. Okay. Makes me feel like I've done nothing then. Oh, you're amazing. That's awesome. That's awesome. So I know that in your session at the Summit for Animals, you're going to be specifically talking about working, involving, engaging with boys, young men, and male identifying youth in humane education and gender based violence. Which, by the way, for anybody who's watching, sometimes we refer to gender based violence as GBV. It's just an acronym in preventing gender based violence. So, can you tell us what are some of the best practices for engaging this group?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, it's just really important to involve them. That like this is something that again I bring into my work at JGIC to say like this engaging young men, boys, and male identifying people in gender based violence work is so important for the same reason that engaging non Indigenous Canadians into reconciliation work is so important. That you need to think about those who are likely to perpetrate harm or even just be left out of the conversations in a way that you don't get their perspectives is really going to stop the most benefit from coming out of these processes. I think we all kind of at least hopefully have an understanding that like patriarchy, toxic masculinity, it impacts everyone, boys, men, girls, women, two spirit, non-binary people. Like we're all going to be harmed by these really awful colonial systems. So being able to frame them in a way that, you know, doesn't put blame on these young folks, but is a way to be bringing them in so that they can start to also take leadership roles to, you know, engage in these effective strategies, because it just doesn't do anyone any benefit to be excluding groups from important conversations that impact all of us. In my work at JGIC, we talk a lot about a term. It's called two-eyed seeing. I've mentioned that at other conferences as well. The term in Mi'kmaq is Etowaptamunk, and essentially it's based in their traditional gift of multiple perspectives. They understood that there is such a benefit in involving as many diverse voices into decision making, into planning, that not only does inclusion follow to make sure that people you might have excluded before feel included in the process, but there's a lot of powerful and transformative and then sustainable change by keeping them in the conversation. This is not something where GBV we used to call, you know, domestic violence. Now it's called interpersonal violence, those kinds of things. So it can also happen to anyone. So that's also another reason to not be excluding any of these groups. And yeah, that's why I'm really so thrilled to be part of this promising practices group.
Yes, which we're going to talk about very soon. I love that. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So basically, what you're saying as well is bringing a lot of voices and not just one demographic or one group. And I like that with this approach, as you said, sometimes is let's think about historically, statistically, who are the perpetrators or who are the people who are affecting change? How can we get through with them immediately right away?
Yeah,
So that's as well something else that you said that really resonated was the sustainable change, not something that happens once and like okay that's it done, but
exactly.
how do you make that long lasting? Do you find that as well? Is it easier to get through to a younger generation or a younger demographic? You know the saying that like you can't teach a dog all tricks. I think that's how it goes. Do you think that's true? Do you think that actually applies, or do you think it's still worth it to go and approach older people and thinking, no, no, we can still course correct their actions. We can still instill maybe some humane education practices, or we can change their mindset, their perspective, their biases.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think you can teach old dogs tricks and new tricks and all of those things as well. It's not, I think because it's being framed under humane education, the target is younger folks. But I definitely think bringing in, we call them at JGIC, our intergenerational allies, because those are people that
Mm,
hold leadership positions within communities, within families. They're people that young people look up to, and they're people that, even for someone like me who's constantly looking around for like the more adult, that like I still look up to people like that as well. So I think it is important for everyone. I think anyone can course correct. And again, it's about framing this issue of gender based violence under a lens that shows it impacts all of us, that being an ally, being that person in that leadership role is just as important as being the person learning about it for the first time, because of that immense impact that it will have on our society generally. The more people that are educated about gender based violence, about the violence link, who maybe can see these things happening in their communities and in their lives, it's going to benefit all of us. Like I said, it's like patriarchy brings everyone down. It benefits such a small group of people that more than likely you're harmed by it. So you're part of the solution to fix it.
Thank you. Thanks for saying that. And I agree with you. Honestly, you can actually indeed teach an old dog new tricks. And this applies
Yeah.
to people as well. This doesn't apply just to dogs or cats or animals. Absolutely agree with you. I don't think that that's necessarily true. And I think that, like you said, when we think of humane education, we often think of children or younger demographics. But I
Yeah.
think there's still value in really paying attention to what did you say the intergenerational.
Allies.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So
I like that.
those are the
I
folks, because we don't like calling everyone elders, right? Or for someone like me, where it's basically just, again, using the strength of multiple perspectives, that people in their 30s are going to have a different perspective than people in their 50s, than from their 80s, than from teens. So yeah, for sure. I think it's very important to be including all generations. And that's why we like to bring in this intergenerational lens to it all.
yeah, thank you. And you know what? I am going to do a parenthesis right here and veer a little bit away from our chat because speaking of generations, some of the sessions that we have at the conference this year are going to touch precisely on that. For example, marketing for the newer generations, marketing for the Gen Z generation, how to attract donors in that generation, because we're evolving, we're changing. So people who are in their, let's say, early 20s are not consuming content and aren't maybe donating in the same ways that people who are 50, 60 or over. So that's just a little plug for the conference there for anyone who's watching. We have sessions on 10 different educational topics. Actually, I want to ask you, this is not in our script of questions, but
Yeah.
tell us about your experience this year, helping out in the program committee, helping curate the conference program for the 2025 Summit for Animals. How has that experience been like for you?
Oh, it was amazing. I'm so thankful that I was able to be brought in, as someone who has attended. Like, I'm going into, this would be my fifth or my sixth. I think it's my sixth. So I'll have to grab my little badge this year.
Yes.
But going into it, and obviously, as an attendee, you show up and you just have this amazing conference and delicious food, always in a great location, plenty of people to chat with. But being involved kind of from the ground up and watching it, and being able to also just, even the sessions that were not selected to be ultimately part of the summit, just being able to see the amazing breadth of work that's out there and the variety of people and topics, and just any animal welfare is so multifaceted. I've been in this industry for so long. I have seen it from what it used to look like. I think those of us who especially worked in shelters pre-capacity to care, you've just seen this ginormous shift over the last decade, and I was so excited looking at all of these proposals to see the shift that's going to be happening in the next decade coming up. Because even the focus, I know I don't want to spoiler alert too much, but even some of the sessions about humane ed engaging neurodiverse youth is like just something that wasn't part of the conversation of humane ed for ages. And just all of the kind of best practices that are out there for farmed animal welfare, for in-shelter health, for veterinary health. Like, it really was amazing. So I feel like I got a special sneak peek, like behind the curtain, at the way that it went. But yeah, so glad that I was included as part of the committee this year, and just providing advice about making sure that we had those amazing, diverse, inclusive voices. That sessions really touched on the things that I would want to hear of as someone who has attended so many years. And I really hope that the folks who are able to come see this amazing agenda of speakers that you have, because they really are like the top of the top, because we were just spoiled for choice choosing them. Oh my gosh, I give kudos to your team for narrowing it down, because I had so many sessions where it was like, well, I guess we're going to be here for 2 weeks. I guess this conference is just 10 days of like 8-hour days, because there was just so many.
I know. And I want to highlight a comment here from coming from LinkedIn from Dr. Azalea Boyd, who is actually also
Hi,
a
Dr.
member of the
Boyd.
program committee. And as Dr. Azalea is saying, so excited about the session, so many good topics. And I hear you. I remember I was also helping review the session proposals that were coming in, and I was thinking, we need to do a week-long conference because these are all fantastic. And it was so hard to really curate it down. We have about 55 plus sessions and we received over 200 submissions. So there is a lot of good being done in the animal welfare space, sheltering, advocacy. So this is also an opportunity, Ali, to thank you for being involved in the behind the scenes of curating the program and ensuring that we have those diverse voices. Ruby Leslie here says as well, very good point, which also affects donations. This is going back to what we were talking about, generations.
Yeah.
And cool, going back to our conversation, going back to your session,
Yeah.
as you and I both share in the intro, you've worked closely with Humane Canada, not only here in the program committee for the Summit for Animals, but I know you're working closely with my colleague Sue from the Promise and Practices Project. And I would love for you to talk a little bit about that, give us a sneak peek, because you will go more in depth into this during your conference session. But can you share an update on the Promise and Practices program? Maybe let's start with what is that? And what outcomes have you seen so far with the Promising Practices program? And how can individuals or organizations support or get involved in this program?
Yeah, of course. So I don't want to spoil too much. I believe that Sue and Claire are scheduled for another live stream. So everyone make sure you check the page and sign up for their session as well. But essentially, Promising Practices is a really great opportunity to frame humane education frameworks through this gender-based violence lens. So we know that humane education, the primary focus is on empathy training and is on getting youth involved in thinking, again, we call it One Health, right? Thinking about that intersection between human well-being and animal well-being, and then therefore the environment. But I'm so grateful to be involved in the steering committee so far. I'm one of many. It's just such a phenomenal group of folks. They span from humane education, animal welfare, those gender-based violence education and experts, educators of all different subjects, and just really diverse sectors. Like I'm in conservation working with youth, and I'm involved, and I always feel like my feedback is so valuable about this too. So right now, the role of the steering committee has been focused on providing feedback, our expertise and inspiration for that Promising Practices Online Learning Center. That is going to launch in May of 2025, so very soon, around the time of the conference. And that is actually going to be for any educators who are watching this who might want to participate. That's for educators to get access to that framework, the modules, and the resources. Right now, we have some specific focus groups who are already doing Humane Ed who are implementing it and then providing that kind of live feedback. So I hope by May 2025, we'll have something amazing out there to launch with those people. But yeah, I think Sue and Claire are probably the best. I don't want to, they're probably at home cursing me right now, being like, quiet, quiet, quiet. I've just been so grateful to be involved because it's just a group of people who want this project to succeed and want humane education to kind of shift and be this tool to address this very multi-pronged issue that impacts animals and impacts people.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I can assure you that Sue and Claire are not at home cursing you. They're probably, yay, rooting for you. So no, not at all. But yeah, you mentioned something as well, very important. You were talking about the cross-sectoral collaboration, the people
Yeah.
in the gender-based violence education field, in animal sheltering, etc. And that's exactly as well what this conference brings for people. It's not just one audience. When Humane Canada Summit for Animals started in 2014, it was very animal shelter focused because let's remember, Humane Canada is the Federation of Humane Societies and SPCAs. We had about 200 people in attendance. We've doubled that attendance now, more than double. And now we have people from the law, animal law. We have legislators, we have policymakers, we have humane educators, we have people in wild and farm animal welfare. So there is a variety of sectors that come together once a year at this conference to exchange ideas, to bring their voices to the table. And this is also something for me to encourage anyone who's watching, who will attend the conference or who is thinking about attending the conference. When you look at the program and you think like, oh, you know what? I don't know at this time. I'm not sure. Neither of these sessions really apply to me. I encourage you to change that thinking and sitting on those sessions that you may think like this is not applicable to me, because I can assure you, if you come with an open mind, you will get something out of it, something that will be applicable to your work, to the way that you care for animals, whether it's through advocacy, through sheltering, through volunteering, etc. Just come with an open mind. So I want to hear as well, now that we're almost closing. And by the way, you're getting lots of praise here in the chat. I
Oh,
think this is
good.
Kathy Duncan who's saying, you've been so wonderful to have reviewing this session
Oh,
abstracts. So
thank
kudos to
you.
you as well. Much deserved, a well-deserved shout out to you, Ali. So any final words that you want to share with anybody who's watching and who may be thinking about attending the conference? Tell us as well if there's any particular session or speaker or activity that you're looking forward to, because you're a speaker but you're an attendee as well. You get to sit
Yeah.
in those sessions as well. You get to take part in the conference activities as well. So please, I open the floor to you.
Oh my gosh. Oh, well, the pressure. I can just say, as an attendee, as like a multi-year attendee, for anyone who's kind of on the fence, even if you're like you mentioned, a volunteer at an animal shelter or at an animal welfare organization, if you've ever raised money for a local nonprofit and you want to just kind of, build out that, I would really encourage you to go. Not only are we in, beautiful Montreal that we're able to gather, the networking alone, I think, is amazing. That you're meeting people, like I said, who are keen to learn, who want to connect with you through the event app. You can like send messages and connect with people afterwards. So even those random sessions that you kind of poke your head into, if you're like, oh man, this person's saying something I really want to follow up on. I've never had someone say like, I don't want to talk to you. Everyone is just so thrilled to continue sharing about their work. So I think the networking alone, the opportunities are just fantastic. Even those informal, the great breakfasts and lunches that we have, where you can just plop down at a new table and you've got a new table full of friends. There's never any kind of awkwardness among that. So I have a couple of really amazing sessions that I'm fortunate enough I was asked to moderate. So one of the ones that I'm really looking forward to is one about best practices of managing dogs in First Nations. And this is coming directly from Canine Action Project, which is Indigenous led. So I think, learning best practices and sharing that. I hear a lot in my work addressing this in the decolonization and working with community, that this is something that animal welfare wants to delve more deeply into and do it in a good way. So anyone, especially who works within First Nations communities, I think there's a breadth of sessions. Like when you're saying people were looking at the schedule and couldn't find one they wanted, I'm there being like, I wish I had like a time turner and could attend like
Mhm.
all three sessions in one slot. So there's something for everyone, and it's just a really, really great atmosphere to learn. I remember even last year there was a great session, shout out Calgary Humane. They did an entire session about storytelling, and that was just like so enlightening for me about how we highlight the work of our partners. Obviously, they were talking about dogs and adopting out, a litter of puppies, and I was able to take what they shared and like frame it under how do we best celebrate young kids that are not the ones submitting the photos? How do we frame that they're doing it and bring that back to my team for some great discussions? So there's lots of applicable sessions no matter what sector you're in, for sure.
That's exactly what I was just saying. Exactly. So you sat in on this session by Calgary Humane Society, and I remember we got a lot of positive feedback. Sadly for me, I don't get to sit in many sessions
I
because
know
I'm
you're
working
running
at the
around.
I know. So please, everyone who's watching and attending the conference, enjoy for me because I can't.
Yeah.
No, don't get me wrong. I enjoy it a lot, but it's working behind the scenes. It's so different. But yeah, we got a lot of positive feedback from that session about storytelling. And like you're saying, Ali, they're talking about sheltering context. So adopting out dogs, how to market, how to tell the story from a shelter perspective. But you sat in on that session and you said, okay, the Jane Goodall Institute of Canada doesn't do animal sheltering, but we do this program. So how can I apply what I'm hearing to my work? And that's exactly what I think people need to just come with an open mind and know
Yeah.
that you'll get something out of every session, every conversation, what you were saying earlier as well. Just being
Yeah.
able to jump from one table to another, from breakfast, lunch, snacks. Everybody's so friendly. There's no clicks, it's people
Yeah.
are chatting with one another, mingling. And we have attendees coming from all corners of Canada, mostly all provinces and territories. We have representation at
Okay.
this year's conference. We have guests coming from the United States. We have guests coming from as far as Australia. So shout out to our Australian attendees because that is quite a trek. And then, of course, as you mentioned, Montreal. I mean, Montreal is one of the most beautiful cities that we have in Canada. So, yeah, thank you so much, Ali. This has been a fantastic conversation. We are right at the top of the hour. Thank you to everyone who Kathy, I think it's Kathy saying the hustler. Yes, I am a hustler. Thank
I
you to
was going to say,
everyone
you
who
never
watched
get to
that.
enjoy it. They put you in a pirate costume and make you our t-shirt cannon. So I hope you've been working on that throwing arm as well.
I know, right? I know. I gotta improve those skills. But yeah, it's so much fun. I love it. Even if I don't get to sit in a lot of the sessions, I just love. And I met you through the conference, Ali, and
Yeah.
it's so wonderful that really the only chance that we get to see one another is once a year. Even for us internally, the Humane Canada team, we're about 20 people right now working across Canada, and we only really get to get together once a year at the Summit for Animals. So take this opportunity, everybody. Come. If you've never come before, come for the first time. We'll welcome you with arms wide open. It's okay if you don't like hugs, figuratively speaking. There's no one better, Dr. Azalea Boy. We love you, Dr. Azalea. And yeah, really come to conference. It's 90% sold out. Actually, I think it's over
Wow.
90% sold out, if I'm honest. We're only 6 weeks away. So read up on our sessions, read up on our speakers, get to know them. We have 10 educational topics, and come and see us. We'll be really, really happy to host you. And Ali, thank you so much for your time. Anything in closing? I feel like we've gone through everything, but if you have any final words, please go for it.
No, this was amazing. Always great to see you and connect. And yeah, anyone watching or watching this on recording, try to register. This is just like such an amazing opportunity, no matter what field that you're in. And I'm thrilled to be going there and seeing everyone.
Yay. Excellent. Well, we will see everybody in 6 short weeks in beautiful Montreal. Don't
Yeah.
forget the website is humanecanada.ca/summit. That's SUMMIT. Thank you so much, Ali, for your time. Thank you to everyone from the Jane Goodall Institute of Canada who also helped make this happen. And I will see you very soon. Thank you to everyone who watched. Stay safe and have a good rest of your week. Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.